You used to buy capital-light, cash-generative businesses, but now buy lower-growth, capital-consumptive businesses. I realise Berkshire generates a lot of cash flow, but would shareholders have been better off if you had continued to invest in capital-light companies?
Well, we'd love to find them. I mean, there's no question that buying a high return on assets, very light capital intensive business that's going to grow beats the hell out of buying something that requires a lot of capital to grow. And this varies from day to day, but I believe, and I don't think it's sufficiently appreciated, I believe that probably the 5 largest American companies by market cap, and some days we're in that group and some days we aren't. Let's assume we're not in that group on a given day. They have a market value of over $2.5 trillion. And that $2.5 trillion is a big number. I don't know whether the aggregate market cap of the U.S. market is, but that's probably getting up close to 10% of the whole market cap of the United States. And if you take those 5 companies, essentially you could run them with no equity capital at all, none. That is a very different world than when Andrew Carnegie was building a steel mill and then using the earnings to build another steel mill and getting very rich in the process, or Rockefeller was building refineries and buying tank cars. Generally speaking, for a very long time in our capitalism, growing and earning large amounts of money required considerable reinvestment of capital and large amounts of equity capital. The railroads being a good example. That world has really changed, and I don't think people quite appreciate the difference. You literally don't need any money to run the 5 companies that are worth collectively more than $2.5 trillion and who have outpaced any number of those names that were familiar if you looked at the Fortune 500 list 30 or 40 years ago, whether it was Exxon or General Motors or you name it. So we would love, there's no question that a business that doesn't take any capital and grows and has, almost infinite returns on required equity capital is the ideal business. And we own a couple of businesses, a few businesses that earn extraordinary returns on capital, but they don't grow. We still love them, but if they were in fields that would grow, believe me, they would be number 1 on our list. We aren't seeing those that we can buy and that we understand well. But you're absolutely right that's a far, far, far better way of laying out money than what we're able to do when buying capital-intensive businesses. Charlie?
Yeah, the chemical companies of America at one time were wonderful investments. Dow and DuPont sold at 20 sometimes earnings, and they kept building more and more complicated plants and hiring more PhD chemists, and it looked like they owned the world. Now most chemical products are sort of commoditized, and it's a tough business being a big chemical producer. And in comes all these other people like Apple and Google, and they're just on top of the world. I think the questioner's basically right that the world has changed a lot, and that the people who have made the right decisions in getting into these new businesses that are so different from the old ones have done very well.
Yeah, Andrew Mellon would be absolutely baffled by looking at the high cap companies now. The idea that you could create hundreds of billions of value essentially without assets, without tangible assets. Fast, yeah. But that is the world. When Google can sell you something where Geico was paying $11 or something every time somebody clicks something, that is a lot different than spending years finding the right site and developing, iron mines to supply the steel plants and, railroads to haul the iron to where the steel is produced and distribution points and all that sort of thing. Our world was built, and when we first looked at it, our capitalist system basically was built on tangible assets and reinvestment and all that sort of thing, and a lot of innovation and invention to go with it. But this is so much better if you happen to be good at it, to essentially be able to build hundreds of billions of market value without really needing any capital. That is a different world than existed in the past, and I think it's a world that's likely to continue. I mean, the trend is. I don't think the trend in that direction is over by a long shot.
A lot of the people who are chasing that sort of thing very hard now in the venture capital field are losing a lot of money. It's a wonderful field, but not everybody's going to win big in it. A few are going to win big in it.